Welcome to Module 5. This module is all about finding accessible spaces. So, things like how to figure out whether a location or a business or a venue is accessible. And for this, we are going to rely on Alicia, who has developed a really wonderful checklist. So, here we go.
Okay, so in my pursuit to find accessible places in the region, I started taking a mental note about what makes a place accessible and welcoming, what kind of things would be helpful and not so helpful in creating successful outings for my son. Um, and so that this checklist is now tangible instead of just in my head, and I can now use it as a physical tool to help guide us in our goal of getting out into the world more often. So, how do you use this checklist? So, you use the checklist to investigate accessibility for new locations or events. You can use the information you gather on the checklist to ask about accommodations or to create your own whenever it's possible. The checklist can help guide you in your research phase by knowing what areas you have questions or concerns about so you can learn more about how to prepare and accommodate. You can go through the checklist to find out how to prepare for a successful outing by figuring out what challenges might come up during the visit, planning and preparing to meet those challenges, and discovering what information you still don't know about the space, location, or event that you need to investigate or prepare for. The checklist might also reveal that the space, location, or event is just not a good fit for the skills we have now, but it will help guide us in knowing what we need to work on for future success.
I love that point too. So, let's bring up that checklist.
So here's the accessibility checklist. I've separated it into a few parts. So there's the sensory considerations, um, and then the environment, and then some other things you can consider. So if you look at the sensory considerations, it goes through your visual, your sight. So you can consider the lighting. Is the light bright or is it dim? Are there any flashing lights or screens that change their picture a lot? Is there a lot of fluorescent lighting or is it mostly natural lighting? Natural would be best. Any way to control the lighting. Um, you can also look at what's on the walls. Is there a lot of clutter on the walls or is there more blank space? Does it feel visually cluttered? And you also want to look down at the floor. Is the flooring visually busy? Because sometimes it can be overwhelming. The auditory and sound. So the music is there any music playing? How loud or how quiet is the music? And in the checklist, I put no loud or quiet, and you can circle the one that fits best for you in this when you're looking at the location or event. Is there a lot of talking or chatter? Is there a lot of different noises at one time? Think like a busy diner with there's chatting, there's walking, there's maybe music, there's utensils against plates, all sorts of different things happening. Is it silent? Will all the noises be amplified because of the silence? I always check this one out because my oldest makes a lot of noises and I don't want anybody to be startled. Um, but he also will love that it's silent and will test out his vocals. And so I like to just be aware, is this something that we're going to encounter? Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Are there fans or space heaters, air filter systems? These are things you might not notice unless you're sensitive to them. I am personally sensitive to all these things. So if I'm in a meeting, sometimes I'm at school and they have like one of those air filtration systems just going in the meeting and I can't focus because I hear it. It's a hum and it's the kind of overbearing. So you can consider that. Is there running water going, like a waterfall or a fountain? Um, how does the sound fill the space? Is there a lot of echo? Can the volume be altered? Keep in mind that separating foreground and background noises can be really hard to do, and it takes a lot of energy and effort to sustain. This is the kind of thing that can quickly fill a person's sensory bucket, which leaves very little room for self-regulating. And that can happen pretty quickly. Another sensory system consideration, taste and smell. Now, are there areas that have any sort of strong smell? Whether it's good or bad, it's a strong smell. So you want to make a note of that. Are there crowded areas where smells might be overwhelming? Do they cook or serve food there? What kind of smells do they emit? Do they cook or serve food in the area? And if you're going to eat there, do they have a safe food option? If not, you'll want to remember to bring some snacks. Okay, and touch. Is it crowded? Will there be a potential for people to be close enough to touch? What sorts of textures are on the walls, floor, furniture? Is there anything aversive to touch or something super enticing? Think like fuzzy pillows, you know, something, or maybe your child really loves Velcro. Just who knows? It could be very personal. Okay, and then movement and balance. Are there structures there that look like they could be climbed? Whether they're actually climbable or not, whether they're allowed to be climbed or not, are they climbable structures? I have two examples of this. So my oldest will climb anything that looks climbable. And we would go to Sensory Santa, and the reindeers that they used, the giant reindeers as the display, they were very cute, but they were giant and they had saddles on. And so they look definitely rideable, not safe. So that one. And then I recently went on a field trip with my child, and there were structures that were like, it was like an indigenous people's field trip. And so they had these structures, they were triangular, and then you could cook or dry out, furs on them, but they look like they can be climbed. And so he was really excited about trying out this lovely climbing structure in the middle of the field. So these are things I like to make note of, and that way I can be ready, or I can put that in my story. What are these structures? I can get a picture of them. I can say, wow, look, let's learn a little history before we get there. Um, they're not for climbing kind of thing, right? How is he supposed to know until he tries?
Yep.
That reindeer has a saddle, So, okay.
Those are great stories, but it really
Yes.
helps highlight what can happen, right? And it's
Yeah.
stuff that we wouldn't necessarily think of, and it can be a surprise if you haven't checked out the facility ahead of time.
Right. Yeah. This is why I try to really think about things from a place where you don't know the rules or you don't know the process or procedure. You just know saddle means ride, or triangular, structure means a climbing structure. So yeah, it's definitely you have to think in detail. Um, okay, and then is there enough space to safely move around when needed, like when you're waiting? Is the ground even or bumpy? It'll depend on your child, client, student, whether or not this is something you want to consider. Um, are there a lot of stairs or ramps or hills? If you're sitting for any time, where would be the best place to sit that would allow for movement if needed, or easy access to take a break outside? So if you're in a restaurant, do you want to sit at a booth? Do you want to sit at a table? Do you want to be really close to people? The location of the booth or table within the restaurant, maybe pick somewhere where it is okay to move around a little bit if he needs to get up and out, or maybe close to the exit so he can leave for a few minutes and come back. Just want to consider these possibilities.
It's
So the next,
awesome. I do
yeah,
have a question for you. You have a
yes,
space here. I see that there are circles that are empty.
yes. So you can add your own because everybody is so different. And I was thinking about my children and myself. I was trying to think of other children and people that I know. but I can't think of everything. And somebody's going to have something that's very specific to them. And I left a bunch of blank spaces for you to put your own. Um,
Good idea.
yeah, we also welcome feedback. So if there's something you think should be added, I would gladly add it in. And
Thank
then
you.
notes. So you can make notes of like when you go and do these pre-visits. So this was an issue, but they said that they would do this, or this non-negotiable thing is going to be a red flag, or, little notes you can put in there.
That's awesome.
Uh, yeah. So the next section is about the environment. So what is the space like? Are there many small rooms and areas, or is it one big room? Are there multiple buildings? If it's outside, how do they keep people from wandering out to the areas that are off limits? Are there railings? How tall are the railings? I have to consider this all the time because I've got such a tall older child. So small railings meant for kids his age, just he towers all right over them. He can hop over them. So I always have to look at how tall things are. How tall is the fence? Um, is it easy to access the exits, a quiet space, or an outdoor area if needed? Where are the washrooms? Are they accessible? Do they have loud hand dryers or paper towels? Is there a family or single washroom available? And you also want to consider the temperature. Is it hot? Is it cold? Can the temperature be adjusted? Doors are something I consider a lot when I go. How many doors are there? Are they locked? Are there a lot of doors in the building? Are places that cannot be accessed behind locked doors? How important would it be to ensure that doors are locked? Would a locked door become a problem or a trigger? And for inaccessible areas or areas you can't access, is there clear signage indicating that an area is closed or off limits? Something visual to refer to when creating a boundary. Something I love about that field trip that I just went on, it was like a walk. There was walkways along the lake,
Huh?
and I was a little nervous about them, but they had clear signage of where areas were not safe. And it was very obvious that you weren't supposed to be walking on certain spots. And it helped me so much because there was no guessing. It was a clear sign. It wasn't accessible, and so it wasn't even an issue. So I love when I see clearly outlined boundaries.
Point.
Yeah.
Oh,
And for someone who experiences challenges with impulse control or anxiety, the need to explore areas of a building can be intense and unignorable. If there are areas that a person can't access but that are unlocked, this information needs to be shared and understood. Um, yeah. So it helps even when we go to our neighbor's house, we visit our neighbor's house and they have little closed signs, homemade, lovely closed signs on the doors that they don't want my oldest accessing. And it's just so helpful to have a visual to refer to. Okay. And then people in crowds. Large groups can be overwhelming sensory wise and socially, and probably for a million other reasons. So the people are the people who work there welcoming, kind, warm, patient, accepting, open to suggestion. What language do they use about, for my instance, the autism? What language do they use about sensory differences? You can kind of take note to see kind of where they're coming from, or maybe how to make suggestions. If you're going to a restaurant or sitting for any duration, how close are you to the other patrons? So would it be helpful to have more space to sit close to a wall? If you're on a train, maybe the front or the back of the train. Um, those are just a couple examples. And parking, that's another thing I think about a lot. How big or small is the parking lot? Is the parking lot busy? Are there accessible parking spots if you have a pass? Is there on-street parking? How close can you get to the entrance or exits? Do you have to cross a street to access the building? Could the parking lot potentially become an unsafe environment? I consider all of these questions anywhere I go.
It's a tricky
Um,
thing, right? Parking lots, because the unpredictability about the cars driving in there. their speed,
Yes.
and yeah, all of that is so important to consider.
Yeah, and sometimes my oldest is heavy on the opening of the door.
Wow.
So I try to make sure that I park in a spot that either someone can't park on that side or I've got a ton of space. Now we have the accessible parking spot permit, but we didn't for a long time. And I've parked somewhere where I've parked and there's no spot beside me, but someone has been there when I come back and my oldest has hit their car with the door and I said, "That's why we parked here."
Oh,
I try to avoid this. But it's important. These are just all considerations, right? I did my part.
yeah, yeah. And
Um,
Lisa, how easy is it to apply for that accessible parking permit?
it was really easy. I should have done it way sooner.
Okay.
I just mentioned it to our pediatrician and because you have to have a doctor kind of certify it. And my pediatrician happened to do it all the time. And so was like, yeah, no problem. And it was sent off right away, like sent back, and then you send it off via email and then you get your permit 2 weeks later.
That's amazing.
And
Okay.
so I was like, oh, this would have come in handy a whole lot sooner. But now I have it. And it does make a huge difference to be able to park closer or have different spots that are wider. Lots of space for us. And especially now with the dog, it makes it a lot easier too. So yeah.
Good to know. Thanks.
Okay, and then rules. So, are there rules you need to follow when in the space that might make it difficult? For example, quiet in the library or stay in your seat during a show. You have to wait in this line or wait for your turn. Staying in a certain area and not going off into other areas. Um, and are the rules easy or hard to follow? So these are some considerations. And then I put other elevators and escalators. Um, my oldest loves to ride an elevator, and escalators came up during my training with dog guides. It wasn't even on my radar, and I added it to this checklist because the dog guide won't go on the escalator. But if my oldest goes on the escalator, I need to be able to have a staircase close by. So now I know to check if there's an escalator, is there a staircase right beside it? Or do I have to plan for someone maybe coming with me so that I can still get to my son if he goes on the escalator, but the dog is not yet ready to go with him.
Oh boy.
Yeah, this is something I didn't even consider. So it's
Yeah.
now something on my checklist. And these things come up where it's like, oh, you're going to need to add a few things to your checklist. So there are common challenges. These are for me personally. And there might be certain common challenges that you want to add to your list that come up um, for you. So waiting of any sort, lines, turns for the group, waiting for the group if you're in a field trip and you've got the class with you, that's a challenge. Waiting to leave. So if you're ready to leave an hour before the bus comes, that's a challenge. Waiting rooms of any sort can be challenging. Communication. So how are you expected to communicate? Are you expected to speak? Are you expected to use your voice? Is it AAC friendly? Like, can you use another mode of communicating? Can you write? Can you type? Can you whatever, anything? And how much participation is expected? So, yes, and then impulsivity. So, is there a body of water? That's a big thing. Sometimes that can be really exciting. Um, I've had times where my oldest, when he was smaller, would just run toward the water, even like thin ice. You just have to be aware that it's there. Fire extinguishers are super exciting for my oldest. He will take the pin out, and he has let off a fire extinguisher. They are so messy, and yeah, and loud. And so That's something I have to be aware of. Just so knowing where it is though, then I can point it out and say, "Oh, remember?" That way the impulse doesn't take over before the thought can come in. Fire alarms, so pullable ones, if they don't have the nice cover on them that I love. Climbing is another big thing for us. So, and I already mentioned that anything climbable is a challenge.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. Some of those I never would have thought about or thought of. So that's a really good, that's a great list. And I like the extra spaces because I'm sure there's stuff on here that it has also not been thought about.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of spots for notes and lots of space for additions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Okay. So then we'll go to the next page.
Yes. The second page is I included a list of potential questions to ask when you're calling, emailing, or doing your pre-visit, so you can get more information about what to expect and how to prepare.
Okay.
So, do you have sensory-friendly or designated quiet times? When are there fewer crowds, less activity, or the least busy days and times? Are there any accommodations available already for waiting in lines? Sometimes they will have something that you can skip the line, or I think there's Canada's Wonderland where you can go and check in with the line. And if it's a 1 hour wait, then you come back in an hour and then you go through. So you don't have to actually wait the entire time. Those kinds of things are really helpful.
Yeah.
Whenever my oldest goes on a trip, I say, can we board first? Just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. If there is music playing, can it be turned off or down? We've been to a dental office, dental anesthesia, so I assume that they should tailor to specific needs. But we went in there, it was 7 a.m., bright lights, music blaring. Like, okay. So, but these aren't things I now I know, and now I have this checklist. I can ask about these questions, ask these questions beforehand, and I can arrange to have the music low, the lights low before we get there. That's what the usefulness of this checklist is. If there's overhead lighting, can it be dimmed or turned off? Are there any areas that are not open to the public that are not behind a locked door? How are inaccessible areas marked? If there are rules, are there any exceptions or accommodations for people with disabilities? Again, what rules do they already have in place? Like what are they already doing? Are the staff warm and friendly? Do the staff members receive any training on how to support autistic people and others with sensory processing differences in the business or event space? Are there safe, quiet areas we can access if we need a break? And then there's some questions that you can ask yourself. I think I asked this one that if you're sitting for any time, where would be the best place to be to allow for movement? If you're going to a restaurant, where would be better to sit? What things will be essential to bring? Consider creating your own checklist for this. The things in my backpack, like a bag of rocks, might not be useful for you. Maybe it's a different bag of something else. I don't know. Um, and will this trip be more successful with more supportive people with you, or is it likely to be successful without much extra support? So you can plan for that. How can I prepare my child and myself for success for this outing? So it's not all just about the child, client, or student. It is about you too. So think about how this stuff on this checklist affects you and how you can be accommodated too.
Always a good point.
Yeah. And then the last page is for a reflection. So you can go back to this checklist after you've done your outing and reflect on what went well, what you can make sure to do next time, what was challenging, how can you improve for greater success next time, And then you definitely want to put your noteworthy successes to celebrate. And this is really important, this whole reflection, because then you can plan for next time, or another outing in another space. You know exactly, you know more about what to do and how to prepare.
Yeah. Thank you, Alicia. That's amazing. It's nice. It's so nicely detailed and outlined. So we're super curious if you have anything that you would consider adding to that checklist, like what is missing? And also if you have your own checklists. So this is a good time to even just have reflect on some questions. Did you have any aha moments when you went through the checklist? And what do you think should be added for a school environment checklist? This checklist was mostly for public spaces. So there may be more or less to add if you're doing a checklist for school environment. So we would love to have your input on that and your thoughts on that. So I'm not sure if you've noticed, but at the end of each module, there's a place where you can post some questions. So if you haven't done that, take a peek and maybe post if you have some questions or thoughts on this module or on any previous module, please do that. And I'd like to invite you to the live discussion for this module for part 2 of accessibility. It is going to be on April 25th. So we have 2 times, 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. So join us there. Bring other resources. If you have created or completed checklists for accessible places, bring it then. We're going to share some accessible places in this region, and so it'll be a great discussion. So please come. And if you're watching this after April 25th, just please add your comments in at the bottom of this module, and we will be sure to read them and make sure that if there's resources that you think we should add to this workshop, that they get added too. So if you do have that, please send it to our email, which is thewithgift@gmail.com.